Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're exploring the massive administrative backbone of the Indian Railways. You know, this system is so vast and complex, it literally functions as its own living ecosystem. We are going to unpack exactly how this colossal organization plans, funds, and executes its infrastructure projects. Let's dive right in.
So have you ever actually stopped to wonder how the world's fourth largest railway network decides exactly where to spend its billions? We are talking about funding thousands of railway projects across the country, from laying down new tracks to upgrading massive machinery. It's not just a matter of writing a giant check. No way. There is a highly structured, almost scientific process behind every single rupee spent.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 5 key stops. First, decoding railway expenditures. Then, cracking the allocation code, moving on to proposing a new work, looking at the pink and law books, and finally, execution and revision. All right, let's get started.
Stop number 1, decoding railway expenditures.
Okay, before a project can even get off the ground, we absolutely have to understand how the railway categorizes its, quite frankly, massive spending. They sort all their expenditures, the whole shebang, into 16 specific demands. Now, demands 1, 2, and 3 just cover your general overheads. Think railway board, general superintendents, that kind of stuff. But the rest, they split into 2 very distinct tracks.
The system strictly separates the everyday from the exceptional. Demands 4 through 15 are what we call revenue demands. This is your day-to-day stuff, repairs, fuel, paying the staff, basically what keeps the trains running today. But demand 16, that's the works demand. Dedicated to assets, new construction, and big replacements, this is the track for massive future investments, and it's exactly the one we are following today.
Moving right along to Section 2, cracking the allocation code. Now, Demand 16 doesn't just get handed a lump sum check. Oh no. It gets broken down into a highly specific genetic code for every single project. Take a look at this string, AB16-4100-XX. This is literally the project's DNA. This little code dictates exactly where the money comes from and exactly what it's going to buy. Basically, without this string of characters, a project just doesn't exist in the financial system.
So what do these numbers actually mean? Let's crack the cipher. The ABC at the start represents the fund allocation, literally which financial pot the money is being scooped out of. 16, as we just learned, is the demand number for works. Then we have 4100, which represents the plan head. Specific numbers represent exact types of projects. For instance, plan head 11 is for new lines. But our example here, 41, stands for machinery and plant. And finally, the XX at the end is the primary unit. That gives you the really granular detail of exactly what is being purchased.
If we zoom in on that ABC portion, it reveals the different financial pots I mentioned. CAP stands for capital. That's used for creating brand new assets. Then you've got DRF, the Depreciation Reserve Fund, which is essentially the replacement account. And RRSK is the Rashtriya Rail Suraksha Kosh, a fund dedicated exclusively to safety. By using these highly specialized buckets, the railway guarantees that funds are totally locked into their intended purpose. There's no siphoning money off for other uses.
All right, Section 3, proposing a new work.
Okay, so we have our financial DNA, but how does a project actually push its way up the chain of command? Well, everything starts right at the grassroots, the unit level. First, a proposal is formulated. We're talking a sketch, a cost estimate, and a really solid justification. Then it needs administrative approval from the local brass, followed by a green light from the unit's own finance team. Only then does it get fired up the chain to the planning department.
Next, the proposal levels up to headquarters. Here, all those grassroots unit proposals are consolidated, and they have to survive some seriously rigorous scrutiny from various regional department heads. HQ Finance also has to concur. And because, as you know, there are always way more great ideas than there is actual money, projects are ruthlessly prioritized. Only the absolute most crucial top-tier proposals ever get forwarded to the general manager or the railway board.
So, who actually makes the final call? Well, the project's price tag dictates exactly how high up the ladder it has to go. The ultra-powerful railway board, they sanction anything over 2.5 crores. The general manager handles projects up to that 2.5 crore mark, and below that, regional and divisional managers have sanctioning limits up to 1 crore. It's pretty straightforward. The bigger the budget, the higher the boss.
Which brings us to Section 4, the pink and LA books.
Now is the moment a sanctioned project gets officially stamped into railway doctrine.
But, as you can guess, this is a strict filtering process. Proposals first enter the PWP, that's the Preliminary Works Program. The chief engineer coordinates these raw proposals and ships them to the Railway Board. The board then examines them, negotiates with the general managers, and decides what actually survives the cut. That final surviving list, that becomes the FWP, the Final Works Program.
Depending on the price tag, these surviving projects meet very different fates. If a project costs more than 50 lakhs, it goes into the highly prestigious Pink Book. Prepared by the Railway Board, this book is actually presented in Parliament by the Rail Minister, so yeah, it undergoes intense national scrutiny. Conversely, works below 2.5 crores go into the LAW book, which stands for List of Approved Works, and that's handled locally. So one is literally for parliamentary debate, and the other is just for local execution.
Finally, Section 5, Execution and Revision. All right, the funds are allocated, the project is official, now the rubber actually meets the road. The executing unit takes over, and they have to manage an immense logistical tightrope walk. They're handling the actual physical construction while coordinating between engineering, electrical, and signal departments. Plus, they must perfectly time their procurement to match the construction progress and ensure funds are utilized immediately. The golden rule here is, money never sits idle.
But let's be real for a second. In massive, real-world infrastructure projects, things rarely go exactly to plan, right? So what happens when a project's cost inevitably overruns its carefully calculated initial estimate? Does the whole thing just grind to a halt?
Well, the answer lies in strict revised estimate rules. If costs jump, the unit must prove exactly why. The system is reasonably forgiving of things completely out of their control, like you're permitted up to a 50% excess if it is strictly due to market price escalation, say the global cost of steel spikes. But for logistical errors or internal delays, nope. The cap is a strict 20%. It forces absolute accountability and prevents any kind of blank check spending.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. When you look at the thousands of unique project DNA codes, the strict hierarchical sanction limits, and those rigid escalation caps, could you manage the sprawling machinery of the Indian Railways? It's literally like a giant puzzle. The sheer organizational effort behind every single train ride, every new station, and every upgraded locomotive is, quite frankly, staggering. So next time you see a railway construction site, you'll know exactly the massive bureaucratic journey it took just to break ground. Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning how the world around you is actually built.